but you have to understand what happens in the muscles. You see, besides being balanced over a point, which balance always is, that's static balance, but you have to understand what happens in the muscles. You see, besides being balanced over a point, which balance always is, that's static balance, dynamic balance takes into account how the muscles work. You see, every muscle in the body has an opposing muscle. You have the bicep and the tricep. And they work with each other. When the tricep stretches, the bicep is contracting, and vice versa. And every muscle in the body has an opposing one to balance it out. That's why we can automatically balance. It gets a little complicated. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to be balanced, every opposing muscle in the body has to be working evenly with its partner. That's one element of balance that has been misunderstood forever, and it's super important to the golf swing. But there's another element as well. Say, for example, if I'm stood up to the ball and I'm balanced over a point and I'm relaxed, which means my muscles are working evenly, am I balanced? And the answer in this case is no. And the reason the answer is no is because not all of my muscles are engaged. And there's a third element that's very important, and that's very simply that the muscles of the body must be engaged. So if you're standing and you've got your stance, but parts of your body aren't engaged, if they're just there and the muscles are just not doing anything, they're not in balance either. So opposing muscles have to be working evenly, and they've got to be engaged. So when you see a golfer with a really good stance, he's a little springy, all his muscles are working, and the opposing muscles are working evenly if his stance is in balance. And the first element, of course, he's over 1 point. So let me review this real quickly. You've got 3 points that you have to have true dynamic balance. 1, you have to be balanced over a single point. That's static balance. But dynamic balance requires that the muscles, opposing muscle groups, must be working evenly, and the third point is they must be engaged. If you have one muscle engaged and the opposing muscle is not engaged, they're not in even balance. So you have 3 points. They have to happen for you to be in balance. Now do you see why it's been so misunderstood? Okay, so we've got it all figured out. Get in balance and everything's going to work just fine. Your golf swing is going to be automatic. Not necessarily. There's one more complication, and that's the subconscious mind and how it works. You see, the subconscious mind is the mind that controls movement, the movement of the golf swing and any other movement you make. But the subconscious mind also controls your breathing, your heart rate, and every other function of the body to keep you alive. The problem starts because all of those functions are a priority, and they go at the top of the list of the things the subconscious has to do. The golf swing is not a life or death situation, so the golf swing can only go as high, focus-wise, in the subconscious as just below that priority list. So here's the stuff, here's the golf swing. You can put it right at the top of the list and it's still not going to get the focus that this stuff, the priority, the life or death stuff, is going to get. But there's a loophole, and I found it. Remember we were talking about balance? Well, here's the key. If you focus on balance as a priority during your golf swing, you automatically take your golf swing from underneath the list and attach it right to the priority list, because balance, automatic balance, is a priority in the brain. And this is the trick that's really made the golf swing control course work so well and so quickly for so many. Okay, so let's wrap this up real quick. How are we going to use balance to make your golf swing better? Well, first we're going to show you how to start in balance. You see, the setup is static balance, but you still have to be ready to move, which means that static balance has to include all the elements of dynamic balance so that as soon as you start moving, you're moving in balance. That's how we're going to start. And here's the great thing about that. The setup routine that I have designed, and it took me 10 years to get right, works for 99% of the golfers to a degree that if they get the setup routine right, it usually corrects the mistakes that they have later on in the golf swing. Let me repeat that. 99% of the golfers who come to me for instruction, when I fix their setup and get it in balance, it fixes the problems they have in the rest of their golf swing. That leaves any movement glitches you might actually have and makes those very simple to correct. So this setup routine that I have and I've created is very, very important. Again, it took me 10 years to develop it. And every little detail that is in there is important. If it wasn't, I took it out in the interest of simplification. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this setup routine as part of a free service for you to see if golf swing control is going to work for you. If it does, there's so much more in golf swing control that's going to help your game. But first, I'd like to tell you a quick story. I once played golf with a rather beginning golfer. 18 holes, he didn't know me, I didn't know him. We got on the first tee, I watched his setup, it was kind of like that one I showed you earlier, and I realized, okay, we have a beginning golfer here, maybe I can help him. So after he hit the ball, about 180 yards, it was in the fairway because it didn't go far enough to really get out of bounds. After he hit the ball, I asked him, I said, look, I've taught golfers over 7,040 countries. Would you mind if I gave you a little help? He said, well, I said, look, I'm not going to work in your golf swing. He said, okay, if you're not going to mess with my golf swing and you're going to help me, sure, why not? I'm open. So all I did for that 18 holes was work on getting him in balance. One little step at a time. Each step of the setup, I introduced it as he could get it. And by the time the 18 holes was up, his setup looked a whole lot better, and his drive was 250 yards right down the center. And he was ecstatic. The whole point here is I never worked on his swing, but because we got him in balance, because balance automatically fights to keep you in balance, his swing took care of itself. There were a couple elements that we could have worked on, but it wasn't important at the time. He had immediate results, 70 yards difference, super accuracy right down the center. He went from losing 6 balls in the first couple holes to losing none on the back 9. That's incredible, isn't it? For a beginning golfer, it's amazing. So it does work, and I've proved it. I've even proved that balance works by having golfers hit balls with their eyes closed, blindfolded. And in many cases, because they were using balance alone, they hit the ball better with their eyes closed than with their eyes open. Sounds kind of amazing, but because your body has to focus on balance when your eyes aren't in the picture, it works. And this is part of the setup routine as well. Okay, so how do you get this free setup routine? If you look down the page a little bit on the right, you'll see a box that talks about the free newsletters, the original free newsletters. There's 5 newsletters there, and they cover the whole swing. Sign up for the newsletters and get the newsletters in your email. They'll also have links to videos that cover much of this, the process, the balance as far as the setup, the balance as far as the backswing, and the balance as far as the transition. It'll give it all to you. What I want you to do is go through that and see how it works for you. But here's the key. Use balance as a priority. You may get lost in movement, and that's the trap that golfers fall into. They think that movement is where the golf swing actually happens, but it's not. If you get yourself in balance, movement takes care of itself. Okay, so to get started, sign up at the box down the right hand of the page, just a little bit further down. Start using the information. Take your time. Get the setup first, and then start going through the information step by step. Go through the videos because they'll explain a lot of the areas where people are confused, and then email me and let me know what's happening. If you have any questions, email me. I'll be happy to answer them. What I want to do is show you that this is going to work before you ever invest a dime. And if you know it's going to work, the investment will be worth 10 times whatever I ask for it. So hit them well, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.